2021's minted yet another unicorn. The newest startup to become a unicorn is special for many reasons. The first one being it's broken all kind of records to become the fastest unicorn to be minted in the country. I'm talking about Mensa Brands, which has entered the coveted $1 billion plus club in 6 months flat. That's right, in just 6 months, Mensa, which is trying to do a Thrasio here in India, has entered the unicorn club. I'm going to be talking with the founder, Ananth Narayanan, who's joining us here on ET Now on his big day. He is a startup veteran. He's been the CEO of Myntra. He started MedLife, that was sold to PharmEasy, and now he's back with the fastest ever unicorn in the country. Ananth, congratulations. How does it feel?
Thank you. Thank you for having me over. Excited, not just because of the valuation or anything, but just because I think we're building an outstanding business, which I'm really excited about and very happy to talk about it. But thank you for having me.
So let's talk about it. And then the first thing I've got to ask you is that, to hit a valuation of $1 billion plus in just 6 months flat, it sounds crazy. It sounds unbelievable. How real is it?
So let me just tell you a little bit about what Mensa is trying to do. Look, we're not just an aggregator. We're an accelerator of brands. Mensa means constellation. We're trying to build a constellation of stars. Each of our brands is a star. So there are, two parts to the business. There's, of course, creating partnerships with our brand founders, finding the right emerging brands, sort of partnering up with them, investing into them. And the second part of that is actually acceleration, which is once we get the brand, how do we grow and scale the brand? I think the excitement for us comes that in 6 months, we've been able to do 12 partnerships with 12 outstanding founders who are going to work with us across categories like fashion, beauty, and home. And really what's exciting, Nayantara, and this is what I think is the excitement for me, in particular, the entire Mensa team, and even for our investors, is that we're able to really accelerate the growth of the brand and create breakout brands using technology, using a lot of digital marketing and branding, and really optimizing the operations of the brand, right? So the reason founders come to us is it takes one kind of effort to build a 30 crore brand. It takes a very different kind of effort to build a 300 crore brand, right? So what we're really trying to do is to be a house of brands, right? I don't think we're trying to be Thrasio, we're trying to be X, Y, Z, right? We're trying to build a global tech-led house of brands, right? The categories we're focused on are fashion, beauty and personal care, and home. We're also, which is quite unique, I think, to us, trying to build brands out of India that can go global, right? So several of our brands are already, we've taken them global. They're now selling in the US, they're selling in the Middle East, and I think that's quite exciting as well.
Okay, so you're helping these digital-first brands, the D2C brands, to become 300 crore plus in India and also to go overseas. I take all of that, but I also want to ask you, Ananth, is that in this concept of house of brands, which is now in vogue, right? It's become a buzzword. You're doing it. Nykaa, Falguni Nair, the richest self-made woman entrepreneur that we have in the country, she's trying to make Nykaa a house of brands. She said that at the time of the IPO. The Good Glam Group, which was the last unicorn that we had in 2021, wants to be a house of brands. What's going to be your differentiator?
So I think firstly, I would like to answer the question slightly differently. India is mostly an unbranded market. I think it's going to go from unbranded to branded. 80% of lifestyle in India is unbranded today, right? So there can't be too many brands. So the more house of brands there are, the better it is, because we're actually leading the revolution to create more branded products in India. That's number one, right? So I don't think it's necessarily a differentiation play. It's many house of brands will be there and many of them will be profitable, number one. Number two, I think for us, I don't know about differentiation, but I'll tell you our focus areas. We are very much a product and technology company with a brand DNA, right? So we're building tech systems that I think are very different in terms of pricing, in terms of digital marketing, in terms of back-end operations, in terms of integration with various e-commerce platforms. And this other thing that I think I'm very excited about is we are platform neutral. We basically can go to any platform, whether it is Myntra, whether it's Nykaa, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Flipkart, whether it's global platforms, whether it's Zalora, Namshi, Target.com, Walmart.com. We're completely open because we're building a house of brands. Our brand should go everywhere, should be in every distribution channel. And I think that's the other thing that I think is quite different and unique about us. And the third, I think, is we're going across categories. We're going across fashion, beauty and personal care, and home, all of which are interesting lifestyle categories that I think we can do something interesting. So if you ask me, number one, I think it's an unbranded market going to a branded market in India. So there can be many, many house of brands. Number two, what Mensa is focused on is on product, technology, and brand acceleration, which I think can eventually be the differentiator because it's the execution focus that matters. And third, we are platform neutral, right? We can go to any platform. We want our brands to be present across all distribution channels, and that's how we're going to grow them.
Okay, so it's a many winner take all market, and your differentiation you're saying is going to be the fact that you're platform neutral and your product and tech first strategy that you're adopting. But tell me, Ananth, what is the plan? As you say, you're not an aggregator, you're an accelerator. You want to help brands that, can only dream of 30 crores to become 300 crores and even go global. Are you looking to look at premium brands, luxury brands? Are you planning to be in the full value chain?
So a great question. So look, we want to focus on the mass premium to premium market, right? Maybe not fully mass, but mass premium, I would say, is the real focus area. Our customer base that we're looking at is between 20 and 45, right? We're looking at customers who are tech. You mentioned it earlier, right? We're digital first, but we're not digital only. I'm open to offline because I think, by the way, it can reach more people, especially if it's tech enabled. So I think if you think about where we're going next, right? In 6 months, we've done 12 partnerships. We have, by the way, grown to about 60 people. And we have 2 to 3 breakout brands, right? The brands that I'm quite excited by, there's a brand called Karagiri, which is a premium sari brand that is now breaking out and growing at 140% year on year. We have a beauty brand, fragrance brand called Villain, which is growing at 250% year on year. So I think we have interesting breakout brands. So if you think about where we are now, we have 12 brands, 2 to 3 breakout brands, about 60 people. If you think where we'll be 2 years from now, we basically will get to about 40 brands overall across the same set of spaces. We will have 10 breakout brands. The team would have grown from about 60 people to about 150 to 200 people. And we will continue to build interesting technology platforms that enable our brands to grow, right? So I think it's very exciting. I think, frankly, look, we're building this for the next 10 years, right? We're not in it for the short term. We're here to build this for the next 10, 20 years. I think for the next 10 years, Nayantara, is the best time to build brands out of India. What's interesting for me is if you look at the number of brands that are over $100 million in revenue in India today, that's less than 20, 25 brands for a country the size of India. And if you look at the number of global brands from India, it's very, very few. I think we are really focused to say, how do we solve that problem? I think the next 10 years, I hope you'll also agree, I think should be India's decade to create global brands, right? And I think I'm hoping that Mensa will have a small role to play in that. And we'll create at least our fair share of those brands that go global, right? And that become large $100 million brands. And that's what we want to do over the next decade. That's what's exciting.
Ananth, as an observer of your career for many years, please allow me to make this one observation. You also help in accelerating a brand, and you know when to exit. You were the Myntra CEO. Look at when you exited. Then you started MedLife. Look when you exited selling to Pharmacy. Now you started Mensa. So you were able to time it right. What do you bring from your learnings to Mensa?
So I think 2 things, right? If I look at, it's a great question. I think it's impossible to time the market. I think sometimes you just get lucky. I think it's more luck than planning, Nayantara, if I'm to be honest, right? I don't think I look for exits. I think sometimes they happen, right? So I think that's number one. Number 2 is I want to build a long-term sustainable business, right? I think one thing, Nayantara, that's changed dramatically in the last 7 years that I've been in e-commerce, right? E-commerce used to be very high growth, but no profitability, right? What's changed now, I think, and this is not just us, there are many people doing it, but certainly I think what I want to do with Mensa is I want to be very high growth, but I want to be profitable. I think one of the things I'm very proud about is that in the first quarter of our operations, we're profitable. right? So what that means, Nayantara, is you're not at the mercy of the markets, right? You continue to build for the long term. If you're both profitable and high growth, then you can basically build and say you want to build for the next 10 years, which is a little bit of what we want to try and do. And so one lesson learned in my mind is, how do you build sustainable but high growth businesses? And when I say sustainable, it means profitable and high growth. And I think that's now possible. It wasn't possible 7 years ago. It's possible now because the rails of e-commerce have been built. The rails of D2C have been built, right? And therefore you can now build brands that are actually profitable and high growth, which is what we're really trying to do. I think, sorry, Nayantara, I'm going to add.
Let me get this straight. Are you trying to tell me that in your 6-month-long journey, Ananth, if you would just allow me to make this one observation, if I've got it right, Mensa is 6 months old, and you're saying out of those 6 months, 3 months, you've been in the green? So you're a very rare unicorn, first profitable, but to achieve it so quickly in your first 6 months.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we are profitable for the quarter, and I think that is the most exciting part in my mind, right? So it's both sustainable and it's high growth. I think that's the part that's different.
You're not burning cash to acquire customers. You're not burning cash for deep discounting so the brands get bigger, see more sales.
Every one of our brands, Nayantara, is profitable. And Mensa as a whole, including our core team, which is the central team, with all of those costs put in, all the technology that we're building put in, we're still profitable. And I think that's the exciting part about this business. Because we're not trying to just be an aggregator, we're building a new kind of company that hasn't been built before. We're building high growth and profitable businesses that I think wasn't possible to do before that we are doing now. I think that's really exciting. You were asking me about what are the other lessons learned from the last 2 times that I've done this. The one other lesson learned is one about the team. I think the ability to attract great talent and to build a cohesive team where culture matters is important. And I think I've learned that lesson again and again across all of the companies that I've been involved with, whether it's McKinsey, whether it's Myntra or MedLife, and now Mensa. And I think that's the other thing that I think we're very proud about. I think in a very short period of time, we've built an outstanding team. So not only is it an outstanding business, I think equally important is an outstanding team. I think one feeds into the other, right? And so I think we've been able to do, and we've been lucky enough to have both. I think we have an outstanding founding team. And that's one of the reasons why we've been able to grow so fast and grow so profitably.
The letter M really works for you, huh? McKinsey, Myntra, MedLife, Mensa, they all start with M. Are you a numerologist as well? Are you superstitious?
And I'm from Madras, and I went to the University of Michigan. So I think M seems to be working well.
I will not ask you if your girlfriends or your wife are letter names also start with M. I'm not going to do that. But Ananth, we're running out of time, so I'm going to make this a final question for you.
You're now getting me into trouble.
You've seen success. Ananth, you've seen success many times over, and I'm going to ask this on behalf of all the budding entrepreneurs, and many of them, and many of these startups which are not from the big cities, and they must be watching so enviously, seeing how the founders from the bigger cities are able to tap capital. Everything looks picture perfect, but every founder's journey is also a lonely one. Every founder believes every day is day zero, and it doesn't always look as easy as it is. Any words of advice for all of those entrepreneurs?
I think, firstly, by the way, there are no easy journeys. I think every time it looks picture perfect, if you go under the hood, it's actually a duck pedaling very hard in water. And I think that's true for me. I think, raising money is never easy. I think exits are never easy. I think building teams are never easy. So it's actually quite hard independent of who you are. I think that's number one. Number two advice I'd have is enjoy the journey. I think it's important because I think the outcomes are quite uncertain and they're very luck dependent, Nayantara. You keep talking about exits. Exits happen a lot on luck. I think you can do all the work in the world, but you may not get an exit, right? So I think you have to enjoy the journey and the process and the learning as you go along. Easier said than done. But I think after having gone through it a few times, I think it's important to enjoy the journey. I think those are the two pieces of advice.
With that, Ananth, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to be here on ET Now on your big day.
Thanks so much, Nayantara. Thank you for having me.